Hey there, hi-ho, hello. It's the Fox 6 Sports Blitz. Brandon Cruz, Tim Van Voorn, Lily Zhao. The Packers take a loss today. We'll talk about what it means, where they go from here, etc. Here's our starting lineup. The playoff hopes definitely take a hit in the process. We play ball with the Milwaukee Bucks. I get it. But the question is it the game ball? The Stricker sisters talk a big rake game and make us say what? The big boys try to avoid some upsets in college hoops, and we'll have our high school hotshot coming your way as well.
We're looking for solutions. So I want to go back to it, and as soon as we leave here, I'm going to go right into my office and get to work on that because, like I said, it's extremely disappointing to have a home game against a team that's right in the thick of it in their division. When you're holding on to one of those spots, and you get kind of manhandled in the second half of a tight ball game. I mean, it's extremely disappointing.
Matt LaFleur speaking specifically about the possible change at defensive coordinator regarding Joe Barry. We'll get all into that in a moment. For first, Brandon Cruz, you were at Green Bay today with me. How has it unraveled this week? The Packers lost to the Giants and the Buccaneers and didn't look good in either game.
No real adjustments, and teams being able to just do what they want at will, which is something we hadn't seen over the 5 weeks leading in to that Giants game. But all of a sudden, again, this Packers defense is porous. They're playing off receivers. They're not doing their job to put any pressure on these offenses, and they're not making any adjustments seemingly. And if they are, they're not being noticed on the field, and that has created so many problems, and especially today when you saw Baker Mayfield just have a perfect game against this defense. And Baker Mayfield had not had a great history at Lambeau Field with whatever teams he was playing on. This one, it looked like he was a world beater, and it was because that defense just could not contain his receivers, especially on third downs.
You lose to Tommy DeVito and Baker Mayfield back-to-back. There's something wrong there. Lily, how frustrating is this after the good stretch? This was Packer football from earlier in the year, but it wasn't Packer football in November.
Right. You're talking about November, December ball for the Green Bay Packers, who are looking like they were turning a page here. But now you revert back to October Packers football, which is not a good brand of football. Again, when you look at the defense, it just feels like these guys are not able, if they can't get takeaways and they can't get pressure on the quarterback, it just seems that when they line up, they cannot get off the field unless the other team is able to mess up. So you have that happening. And of course, the offense not able to put as much points on the board as Tampa Bay, but it just feels like this team is taking a step back. It felt a little blasé. And after you hear Jordan Love talk after they beat the Chiefs, they're 6-6. He says every game feels like a playoff game for us. If it was any indication of how they played the last two times, this team is not playoff ready. But you have to believe with 3 games left in winnable games yet again, guys, they still can put themselves in a position to make a push for the playoffs. But there just needs to be something that changes, because if they play this way the rest of the season, they're not making any sort of run here. And they need to get back to playing that December brand of football that we know they are capable of playing.
You said the word change. I'm going to ask both of you. I'll start with you. Will there be a change at defensive coordinator? That is the hot talk, certainly, around the Packers. It's been bubbling for a while, but certainly coming out of this game.
I think there has to be. I think when you talk about kind of doing the same thing and expecting a different result, it's not going to happen, right? When you have a scheme that isn't working, when you have guys that just can't execute, it's not working. So what do you have to do as a head coach? You might have to make the tough decision and say, we have to move on from Joe Barry, but we will see if that happens either tomorrow, this week, or in the offseason. We'll see what happens at that position, but you have to believe that whether it's this week or later, it's going to happen. And you can kind of say Matt LaFleur held on to Joe Barry a season too long because, of course, they were on the hot seat last year, but he decides to stick with Barry, and the results haven't proved any different in terms of playing better football. And there you see Joe Barry, and we'll see, if there is a change made, but I do believe that is what needs to happen if this team wants to get back to their winning ways.
This week?
I know I said earlier no, but I'm going to lean towards yes.
Okay, how about you?
Yeah, I think it happens tomorrow. And I think what you heard with Matt LaFleur at the beginning of this show was him basically not protecting his defensive coordinator, but not throwing him under the bus immediately after the game today wanted to give it a little space so he can go back and really look at it and then bring his argument as to why he's going to do it. But I have to believe we are going to find out tomorrow that Joe Barry is no longer the defensive coordinator. They'll move people up and just have to adjust for the last 3 weeks. But if they don't, nothing is going to improve with this defense. That has been proven over and over and over and over again. And that's why, to me, this is the only option they have if they want to try to salvage these last 3 games.
Matt LaFleur brought Joe Barry back for a 3rd season here. Is he responding to public criticism if he makes that move?
I think that's part of it. I also think it's the frustration of he has to own his mistake in this. I think he has to own the fact that he brought him back when he shouldn't have, maybe, that he trusted him a little too much. And I think that's where it does fall on the shoulders of Matt LaFleur. So it's not all on Joe Barry. Part of this, and a good percentage of it, is on Matt LaFleur for staying with him for so long.
So the Packers are now down to 6-8. How's this going to finish this season?
You're going to hope on an upswing, right? Because, again, when you look at the Panthers, this is a 2-win team that is not very good. The Packers, if they can just play a tick better, should be able to beat them. You win 1 game, and you have 2 division games coming up next. You're familiar with the opponents. Maybe they can make a run and finish 3-0, but this team has to play much better to do so.
You think it has that type of response in it to win 2 or 3 of these games?
I think they might be able to win 2. I don't know. I mean, I was the one thinking they'd win 5 of these games. And now I'm looking at 2 out of 3 would be a very optimistic way to look at the way this finishes. The Bears aren't very good either. So I'm going to say they're going to have Carolina with no problem. The Bears with no problem. Going to Minnesota is going to be a struggle.
The ebb and flow of an NFL season. It's halftime for the Fox 6 Sports Blitz opening segment only. That means it's time for our Insta poll. You can go directly to the question by scanning the QR code on the screen, or you can go to fox6now.com. And if you do that, this is the question you'll find. What did you think of Giannis Antetokounmpo's post-game actions against the Pacers this week? Major overreaction? It's his ball. It's just a ball. Or the Pacers started it?
I have the ball, but I don't know if it's a game ball. It doesn't feel like the game ball to me. It feels like a brand new ball. I didn't think they had the game ball. I knew they had the ball. First of all, you cannot. I don't know how it works, but I assume I cannot just walk in any arena that I play and just take the ball.
Scores 50 points, wins the title. He gets some nuggets. You score 64 points. You don't know if you hit the game ball. I mean, really overshadowed a monstrous offensive night for Giannis Antetokounmpo. The dust has settled. What's your takeaway?
I think, he hopefully got the game ball today, right, for being the Bucks all-time leading rebounder in franchise history. But, when you look at that game as a whole, I just think it was kind of the Pacers being petty. They're going to say, they're going to give it to their rookie who scored his first point. I know it was against the Lakers. He did score a point. They don't count those stats, but whatever. The Pacers, I think, kind of being a little petty in this situation to say that game ball was going to their youngster there when, they weren't thinking about Giannis's 64 piece. But, it was kind of, you're wondering how the ball got from Danny Carter and it got to the Pacers, and you saw that video kind of in the hallway where the Pacers players are saying don't give it to him. So, I know Giannis probably won't react like this moving forward, but, he takes those game balls and he gives them to his mom. So I know that means a lot to him, and especially on a career night like that. He wanted that thing, and I think he deserved it as well. So just kind of some petty ball by the Pacers there, I'd say.
Danny Carter, by the way, is as top-notch as they come. There'd be some spice on those nuggets, a little spice here with the Pacers and Bucks.
I think so, and they come here on January 1st. They go there on January 3rd. So I don't know if this is quite over. The other thing is that game got very physical. There was a hard foul on Giannis committed, and that created a stir from Bobby Portis, who was soon after that ejected, but he did go to defend his big man. And then as the game goes on, it's well in hand by the Bucks, but then Giannis is close to the record, so Adrian Griffin keeps him in there and he lets him play, and he played, and he threw down dunks even though it was a blowout win. So it was kind of a little bit of, I think, frustration being let out by the Bucks after the earlier losses to the Pacers, but then a little gamesmanship as well, which turned into the ball being stolen. And again, my bottom line here, though, is if this is a player like Steph Curry or LeBron James or even Joel Embiid, the Pacers don't do that.
Yeah. Well, if it's a team like the Pistons, anybody does anything. I mean,
True.
let's face it. So they can come anytime the Bucks would have them into town. But it's 13 straight home wins now for the Bucks. But of course, didn't win the in-season tournament. Where are they progressing as they should be? Are there still some chinks in that armor?
I think they're still progressing. I know they would have liked to win the in-season tournament, but, hats off to the Pacers and what they did with Tyrese Halliburton. But, at the end of the day, this is a team that knows that winning the in-season tournament isn't going to win them an NBA title. So I think what we're seeing here is a Bucks team still getting better, but I like the groove that Giannis, Dame, and Chris are in. I think today everyone scored 20-plus points in their win over Houston. So you're seeing that camaraderie build, especially with the big three and Brook Lopez coming in, being the big four, and these guys playing much better together. So I like what we're seeing from the Bucks and their response after losing to the Pacers, and they've won 4 straight since then at home. So I think this team is still playing a really good brand of basketball. They're getting much better with each other. Now it's more, can we get some more defensive juju going on here? And we'll see when Jay Crowder comes back.
And Jay Crowder, you mentioned, but Chris Middleton, they're a different team when he played. You saw that tonight, for
Yes,
sure.
they are, and there's a little more defense when he's out there as well. I mean, again, it's a Rockets team who's not great, but the problem right now with the Bucks is their defense. They're not able to stop anybody, so it's who can outscore whom. And right now, with the way Giannis and Damian Lillard and Chris Middleton are playing, they're pretty much able to outscore most teams. But if you get into a shootout against a great team, they might not be able to do that and hold them off, especially in a playoff series. I know it's only December, so that's months away, but at the same point, this defense still needs to shore up, and they're allowing way too many points to teams that aren't that good.
And it is only December. You are playing teams that aren't that good. You're playing the Pistons. You're playing the Rockets. You're playing a 6-game homestand. These games are going to even out somewhere down the road. The Bucks do need to bank these right now, do they not?
They sure do, because like you mentioned, it's still early enough in the season where they want to, if they're playing, bad teams, they should do what a good team does, and that's beat them, right? And that's exactly what Milwaukee is doing. So they want to bank these early wins and stay in the top of the Eastern Conference, which is what they're doing right now. But again, as the trade deadline approaches, we'll see if the Bucks do make any sort of moves there, but they have to get better defensively, I think, in the long run if they want to compete with a team like the Celtics. But I think right now they're gelling, they're playing good offense. They just have to round things out together, but they're beating the teams they should be beating.
Talking about beating teams, the Marquette women continue their historic start. College women's basketball, Golden Eagles moving on up through the rankings. They bang off Creighton this week at home. MU also taking on Appalachian State today. 11-0 so far. The Golden Eagles are hosting Bucknell on Thursday. Then they go out east to visit UConn. Still UConn in women's basketball. KK Arnold and crew. We are coming back to more of the Fox 6 Sports Blitz in a moment.
Did you find yourself channeling your inner Hulk tonight?
I don't get your question.
I've been rated high as a funny man.
Certainly, you're talking about one of the all-time greats.
When the Hulk voice or Giannis voice?
That's a good question.
I've actually watched her super intently breaking a bunker, and she's like really good at it. A work of art. I give her a grade A. Not an A+ because you can see there are a few bumps there.
Look at Bobby Stricker, a little tough on her mom. Nikki grading when they're watching her rake, but they were at the PNC Classic this weekend as the Strickers finished 10th in that event. Steve Stricker with his daughter Izzy. That was Izzy and Bobby talking about their mom doing the raking, as she is normally a caddy for Steve and then for them as well when they play at times. But let's move on to college basketball, and now we're starting to get into the swing of things because this week Big East action actually starts for Marquette. They close out their non-conference schedule. How do you feel about them going into Big East play as they meet Providence later this week?
Well, they survived the other night against St. Thomas, and that's what you needed to do. You're in these non-conference wrap-ups. You don't want to lose a game. A couple of teams around the country have stubbed their toes. Marquette didn't do that. It got close late, but they should feel pretty good going forward. Tyler Kolek clearly has been the leader of this team. He's stepped up when this team has needed someone to do that. He's an All-American. You would expect that to happen. So they seem to be gelling to me. That early season loss, they can get past a couple of those situations. they're in a good spot going into the Big East. I'll tell you, the Big East has some good teams this year, too. It is not going to be a cakewalk at the top.
And how much pressure are they feeling to do what they did last year in the Big East? I mean, they won the regular season, they won the tournament. Let's not talk about the NCAA tournament, but the conference itself. How much pressure is on this group?
I think a lot, right? Because, we saw what they were able to do last season. They want to replicate that. But again, all eyes will be on Marquette, and they're going to be the team that's the hunted. Teams are going to be giving Marquette their best shot. So we will see if the Golden Eagles can respond. I think they can. This is still a very talented team that I think wants to make the tournament and win a couple games in it as well. But I think now a lot of pressure on this team just to stay ahead and know we are a good team. Let's just finish this thing.
And what about the Badgers as they start Big Ten? Well, they've had a Big Ten game, but they still have been non-conference. They have one more non-conference for going back to Big Ten play. How do you feel about them going into conference action?
I think pretty good still, right? I know they also survived a scare here against a smaller opponent, but I like what this team presents. I think they're getting better in the paint. Chucky Hepburn's still an elite point guard for them as well, but I want to see what Connor Sejan can do. You want a guy like that to get a lot better because he's going to be kind of a melting pot with the guys down low and Tyler Wall as well. So I like still where this Badgers team is at. I still think they're a lot more talented than I thought they were going to be going into the season. So encouraged by what I'm seeing as they kind of get into the meat of everything.
I think it's Purdue and then everybody else. We'll see what happens. That's right. Well, let's check in on our Instant Poll question. You can go to it by scanning this code or going to our website, fox6now.com. What do you think of Giannis's post-games action against the Pacers? Right now, most of you are saying the Pacers started it, but a lot of you are also saying it's a major overreaction. We're still looking for your answers, and we will continue to show those throughout the rest of the show. Now, in a matchup between the last two NCAA national champions in volleyball, Wisconsin comes up short against Texas. The Badgers fell to the Longhorns in the semifinal at the Final Four at Tampa. Sarah Franklin, though, named the Player of the Year. Texas, though, goes on to win the national title for a second straight year. So I guess if there's a silver lining, they lose to the eventual national champions. Our high school hotshot is coming up next.
Welcome back. Summer camp did wonders for this athlete who was inspired to pursue a dream after attending them. And now his drive has led to a pair of national championships. Here's this week's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
My name is William Braunschweig. I go to St. John's Northwestern Military Academy, and I'm a senior. My sport is the Junior ROTC Raider program. Yeah, so the Raiders is one of the key activities in JROTC, so all JROTCs across the country. All these teams come together, compete in the main events, are rope bridging, you got a 5K run, obstacle course, they call it the gauntlet, a lot of weight carrying, a lot of running. I describe it as track combined with CrossFit, kind of just put together and on steroids. Last year was my first year at Raiders, and I did the Leavenworth Ultimate Raider. I took fourth, and this year I took first. It was my first Ultimate Raider win. Then the second Ultimate Raider, I ended up winning that Ultimate Raider competition by about 2 seconds. There's a lot of pride in being a Raider at St. John's. It's well known. I have an uncle who's a pilot. He flies general aviation, and I've always been super interested in it. Through the school, they have an aviation program, so I'm taking ground school here. I've been able to get about 15 hours, so I'm getting close on starting my solo journey and leaning into my private pilot's license. One of the biggest inspirations was Lieutenant Colonel Ken Patterson, who unfortunately passed away about a year ago to a heart attack. And I'm sorry. He was just a major inspiration to me as a kid. He taught us lessons and so many things about being a man. It gave me a big realization that this life is not given, it's an opportunity. I don't want to waste any. I want to make the most of this as I can. I have a long family history here. My grandfather worked here for about 30 years in the infirmary. So as a family, I'm the first Braunschweig to actually attend the school. My name is William Braunschweig. I'm a senior at St. John's Northwestern Military Academy. And some of the biggest accomplishments for my sport, our team taking 6th place at the Nationals at Fort Knox, as well as myself taking 2 first place in the Ultimate Raider, beating some previous national champions. And I'm this week's Fox 6 High School Hotshot.
Now, William isn't totally sure what direction his military involvement will take, but he would love to pursue being an Army Ranger or even going to airborne school. We'll be right back.
Fox 6 Blitz Insta Poll. A lot of folks saying the Pacers started everything with the game ball gate.
Well, Christmas Eve, spend it with the Packers right here on Fox 6 with a noon kickoff as they go to Carolina to stop their skid.
And the Bucks, they're going to continue their long homestand, taking on Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs later. And, of course, here is your college basketball slate of games, Marquette, UWM, and Wisconsin. Breathe it all in, take it all in.
Looking good, looking busy. We appreciate you folks joining us tonight. Enjoy your lead up to the holiday.